Hi everybody, we are here today in Barcelona with David Bong. Hi David.
Howdy.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about the rotator interval and the structure within the interval called the bicipital sling.
It will be a nightmare because anatomically speaking it's a very tricky structure.
But we have some very nice anatomy pictures to explain them.
Let's go. We will speak about four main steps. The first one is the setting of the exam. The second one is the identification of the landmarks. The third one is the studying the short and long axis of the rotator interval. And the fourth one is the description of the pathologies that can involve this anatomical region.
Very good. So let's continue. Let's begin with the settings. Again, this is the shoulder, so it's a very superficial structure. We're going to use the maximum frequency since we don't have to penetrate very deeply into the tissues. We're going to place our focal point immediately below the structure of interest, which is going to be the biceps tendon, and we will use a minimal depth since it's a very superficial structure. And the gain, I've already set that, so that's your preference. So let's go ahead and start by just she's in the first anterior position. The hand is over the thigh. I like to call this the neutral position. And so when we go and put the probe on the anterior aspect of the shoulder, what we see is the bicipital groove. And if we tilt the probe from side to side, you can see the biceps tendon flashing in the center. So we use our anisotropy to localize the tendon. Now, what we're going to do is slide the probe up until we get to the point where we enter the interval in the rotator cuff. So the bicipital interval is the only gap in the rotator cuff, the gap between subscapularis and supraspinatus. So let's go ahead and slide the probe up, and you can see the biceps tendon. Right now it's anechoic. And as we get up, we tilt the probe, and you can see now that the biceps tendon is changing its shape because it's going into the joint. So at this point is where we have the so-called interval. Now I'm going to freeze this here, and here you can see the biceps tendon, and you can see this tissue around, almost forming a ring around the biceps tendon. This is the bicipital sling made up of the coracohumeral ligament and then a thickening of the capsule called the superior glenohumeral ligament. And this is the first part of the interval, and this is the most important structure, this ring around the biceps tendon to maintain the biceps tendon in its position. Right now we're in short axis over the bicipital groove, and you can see the biceps tendon using anisotropy to identify it. We're just going to slide the probe proximally until we see the biceps tendon leaving the bicipital groove. And it's at this point right here that I'm going to freeze it. So after freezing the image, we can see the biceps tendon. Now it's changing direction and going into the shoulder joint. But as you may see, around the biceps tendon is a ring of tissue. Above it's hyperechoic, below it's hypoechoic. This ring is called the bicipital sling. And this is made up of the hyperechoic portion is the coracohumeral ligament fusing with the hypoechoic portion, which is the superior glenohumeral ligament, a thickening of the shoulder joint capsule. They fuse together to form this ring at the entry of the interval to stabilize the biceps tendon.